Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We're just discussing all the ins and outs and high tech of doing this podcast for three actors, and how Lucy, Laura's daughter, came on our press day and was like, whoop, 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 boom, and like reels and stories and editing and music. It was amazing on her.
She can do all the things. And
so great.
And we're just figuring it out as we go.
I got my pencil.
I mean, I've been asking Jack since he was 8 years old. How do I just hand him my phone? It does everything. Because, when we were growing up, if you hit the wrong button, everything went away.
Yeah.
Right? Like these kids know, look, they ask you, do you want to get rid of it? Do you want to get rid of it? We didn't have that. Do you remember hitting the wrong button and everything you were writing was gone?
Yes, it was scary. The computer was scary. And it still is in certain ways. I think we've just
we've just figured out Zoom, although I'm realizing I need to keep my hands in my lap because I still haven't turned off that setting that makes me give you like fireworks and balloons by accident. So I'm just going to be here with my hands in my lap today for this recap. Daphne's got our recap. She's given us a rundown of Heather Locklear's first appearance in this episode we're recapping today.
Yeah, this is episode 21, season 121.
Where Amanda Woodward appears.
It aired on January 13th, 1993. And we are having such a blast watching this. I just want to encourage our listeners, watch every single episode on Paramount Plus. And if you just want to watch that and then listen to these comments, it's really fun for us, isn't it?
It's a blast to watch the episodes.
Profound.
It's fun. And this is a great time to join in because the episodes are starting to pick up and it's sort of becoming what Melrose Place became.
Let's go.
All right.
Can't wait.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. So picture Imperfect. This is episode 21. I'm trying to look here. Directed by Nancy Malone. So for those of you that remember Nancy, she was a child actress and a great director for us that came on and did a few of these.
She kept everybody moving. I know we'll get to as you go by scenes, but did you notice that? Like sometimes it's just two people sitting in a chair talking. There was movement in every scene. We had props. We were doing things we didn't normally do.
Oh, so we were really encouraged to do that. A lot of shows, this, our dramas just kind of like really rely on the close-ups and over the shoulders. And so you're acting with kind of like your face. But she was very used to, I think you're right. I noticed that, encouraged like body movement and wider shots and things like that, which was cool.
Use the room, use the set.
Shots. And on that note, we start at D&D advertising and we are walking. Lucy and Allison are walking.
Did you notice? I'm sorry to interject so quickly, but there was a male voice over it as we're coming into D&D, and it says, D&D, may I help you? And I was like, why isn't Allison at the receptionist desk? And then we come into this scene.
And we figure out why. She's pulled her off the desk. So Lucy walks in the office and Allison says, is something wrong? And Lucy says, nope, take a seat. And she says that she had to let somebody go, Toby Callip. Allison's getting kind of worried, like, am I next? And she says, I recommended you for the job, assistant account executive, which is a bit of a promotion, I guess. Well, yes, anything is from receptionist, right?
Yep, definitely promotion.
Lucy says, there's room for opportunity. You won't be getting much more than you're getting now, but it'll be really great. You're the liaison between the creative and the client. And she's so excited. And she asks, oh boy, when do I start? And she goes, right now. And she says, we've lost our photographer for tomorrow's for the count of Maximum Advantage, which is a men's underwear. And we need a replacement for that photographer right now. So Lucy picks up the phone and asks for Amanda Woodward, the art director on the account, to come in the office.
Didn't you squeal when she said Amanda Woodward? I was like,
I was in shock because this is the most casual entrance I think Heather Locklear has ever had.
She's apparently already been at the company, right?
In the
And we
other
just
room.
haven't met her yet.
Yeah,
but
we
she's
just
been
didn't
like back in
notice her.
some back office.
Yeah, we didn't notice her. So it's like the most low-key entrance we've ever seen.
But Allison's like, yeah, I know who she is. All right.
yeah, whatever.
Here she comes. Whatever.
So weird. So she goes out, Amanda, will you come in? Amanda will fill you in on the rest of the details. And Allison looks at Lucy, telling Lucy that she's floored. And Allison says, I don't know what to say. And Lucy says, don't let me down. That's all.
But did you notice, like, when I came into the scene, I thought, God, that's kind of a weird outfit. Like I had this big white sweater belted over a white skirt, and it seemed kind of frumpy and virginal. But then when Heather came in and I was like, oh, she's got on a power suit, right? I couldn't look more Midwest
Mm.
vulnerable. And she comes in this like lavender power suit. And I was like, oh, with these big buttons. Remember that? Like she looked
They were
just
setting
gorgeous.
that contrast.
They were setting that contrast because I thought
Yeah.
Denise Wingate, our costumer, didn't do anything without thinking about it. And I was like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, that was a great contrast.
So Amanda has come into the office. They've left Lucy's office, and our next scene is they're walking in to the offices where the general employees are. And Allison is
bullpen.
so excited, and she says, "Oh, I get my own office." And Amanda replies, "Yeah, it's more like your own veal fattening pen." And she shows her cube. And she's like, "Feel free to redecorate," I think she said. Allison goes, "Have you met this Rex Weldon, this tennis star that they're going to shoot for this campaign?" And I've noticed that there's pictures of him on the cubes there. I guess she puts up whoever
Yeah.
they're working on. And he's this cute guy. And she goes, "Yeah, I've met him once." And then Amanda says, try not to dwell on how adorable Rex is, because the last thing you want to do is get involved with a client. And that the account usually disappears when the relationship is over, which is what happened to Toby Callow.
According to the rumor mill.
Yeah.
And do you
Yeah.
remember? Because I remembered that day I was watching that scene and being really nervous about Heather Locklear coming on. She was a really big star.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at the first scenes and just remembering how funny and humble and warm and lovely she is.
Yeah,
Just how she
just comes off
immediately
as, yeah.
puts everybody at ease. I just had that memory of, oh, I remember her coming and looking insanely gorgeous as always, but just so down to earth and so lovely. And I had that memory of, oh, how she put everybody at ease, right?
Totally.
She
Yeah, her
makes an
character,
inappropriate joke. She's lovely to the crew. I just had that memory of having her there the first day and how wonderful it was.
yeah, her character gets like more sort of powerful and bossy as it grows and as it goes on. But here, her entrance, she is so lovely, and her smile just lights up her face, and she just comes
Yeah.
off as so kind and warm and appealing. She's
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun to remember that day. Very
Yeah.
sweet.
nice.
I totally agree. So before Amanda leaves, she says she's going to go look at some more portfolios, but she says, we got to get on this thing. So she really introduces that there's a time crunch, that Allison has her first gig. It's like all this stuff. You're working now, you're working on something that's happening tomorrow, and we have a time crunch. And here's Amanda, and go. And Allison's just like, well, I'll be right here, sitting at her desk. She's so excited. She has a cubicle.
She loves it.
She loves it. So the next scene is at Shooters, and we have a really cool high shot looking down on the group.
Yeah. Were
as
you
they're all
thinking
toasting.
crane shot?
I'm thinking, Nancy's, creativity. She's like, okay, how do you get the message across that everyone's cheering? We're all cheering your
Toasting.
promotion, toasting to
Yeah.
your promotion. So Billy says, well, cheers on your brilliant new career. Dreams do come true. And he kisses you on the cheek, and everyone else disappears. And Allison and Billy sit together at the bar, and Billy's like, well, you won't need a roommate anymore now that you're making the big bucks. And she's like, yeah, it's $50 extra a month. You want to calculate that, Courtney? What's that in today's money?
Exactly.
Let's just get, it's probably the same.
Let's
like,
just
it's
guess
not
200, right?
Yeah.
okay.
In any case,
Not
Billy's
huge.
not going anywhere.
Yeah,
She's
Billy's not
He's
going
not
anywhere.
going anywhere.
So he says, well, I'm really proud of you. And then Michael comes over and pulls Billy aside and to go play pool. And then Joe comes in and takes his seat and is prepared to chat with you. But over at the pool table, Michael and Billy, Michael asks Billy, are you seeing anyone? And Michael says, I think I have someone to set you up with, as he's playing pool. And Billy's like, well, who is she? Well, her name is Lydia Perkins, and she's a nurse at the hospital. Very sweet. And he's like, sweet? Well, which famous person does she look like?
Yeah. He wants to know more. Sweet maybe not be enough of a description.
But
Yeah.
you remember like blind dates,
Sweet.
now you would always get a picture of somebody, right? Like then you were really blind. Like people didn't have
Yes,
Polaroids they
yeah.
walked in. You couldn't say, let me take a picture for your date. You just had to believe the person you were talking to.
Or you couldn't just say, what's her name again? And then look it up all of the
exactly. Yeah,
stats,
Google
like,
it.
as he's getting the name out of his mouth.
Right.
So, who does he look like? And Michael says, oh, Cindy Crawford. And he's like, really? And he's like, no, she looks like herself and she's great. And he goes, well, suspiciously, why can't you get a real date? And he sinks the ball and says, well, why can't you? And he's like, bam. And which is a good question. Why can't he?
Well, because he's in love with Allison. Are you guys not watching the
Yes.
show?
He's
He's
trying everything
nice.
to avoid the truth. Yep.
Yes.
That he
I
can't.
mean,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
So we're back at the bar where Jo has come in and she's sitting there drinking her white wine and bitching and moaning about unemployment. And Allison says, well, I was hoping um, that the receptionist job would lead to something, but, here it is. And you might want to show me some of your photography. I might want to, because I could maybe help you. And she's like, really? That would be amazing. People are afraid of trying something new. Everyone wants to do the same old thing. Allison tells Jo that she would like to help her if she can. And she goes, well, come on over. Look at my photographs. We cut right to the apartment. So this is the one where the portfolio where we start close and we pull back on these guys playing volleyball on the beach. And then Allison's, wow, your photography is so cool. These are great. Did you get any of their numbers? And Joe's like, yeah, no, a few. But then she's like, no, I'm not looking for numbers. My hands are full with Jake. And the last thing I need is to pick up guys at the beach. And Allison says, well, what's going on with you and Jake? Well, we're taking it slow. It's hard, but I know what's best for me. And Allison's like, in this one take, Jake is a really great guy, Jo. And you're good for him. I can tell. And she's like, really? Anyway, then she keeps looking at the photos and she sees some very avant-garde black and white ones. Wow, these are cool. And there are ones that she took in New York for some magazine. And she's like, wow, I'm going to bring these into the office because they're great. Then we're in D&D advertising, and now Amanda's looking through Joe's portfolio, and she's like, wow, did you guys think these photos were really great? Because like everyone is bowled over, and I'm just asking you as audience members, were they really great? Like they didn't really stand out to me.
Well, I think it's
What do I
probably,
know?
yeah, I think it's probably pretty hard to get to the
Yeah.
punchline of this story, right? The punchline is that Joe's going to want to do something a little different. And how do you say that in this first part with just her photographs? Like, this is how Joe is artistic and different, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's
And great. Like they're
yeah.
emphasizing how great these
They're
are.
she's fantastic. Well, and also they're desperate. They need to hire a photographer
Yeah.
immediately. And Allison has presented them with their solution, right? Here's
Yeah.
this
It's
woman.
like, yeah.
She's available tomorrow, and her photographs are
That's
great.
true.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not that they're like greater than 10 other people that are options for tomorrow. It's like Joe is available tomorrow and her
Yeah.
photography is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's an advertising, D&D is for advertising. So they're usually very basic, straightforward commercials that are showing a product, period. Good lighting, show the product. And, that's what they're used to. And these are kind of different, some of them, more creative. So Amanda's going, wow, I love these. Who's her agent? And she's like, well, she doesn't have one. And Amanda
I
says,
thought that
wow.
was a good cover. Allison
Yeah.
goes, she doesn't have one out here yet.
Mhm.
Right?
Ah,
Yeah.
Pretty good in the moment.
Qualifying it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
she's an ally. She's very
Nice.
good. Okay. And Amanda says, wow, this might be the lucky break that we need. So I'm going to show this stuff to Lucy. And then Amanda asked her, do you want to come along? And she's like, yes. And then we cut to Lucy walking down the hallway and looking at Joe's photos. And she's like, wow, these are great. They're so dynamic. What do you think, Allison?
Did you
You know,
see Allison is sort of like hurrying to keep up? Did you notice the
Yes,
way you
I
were walking?
did. I
Is like
did. So
Lucy's
cute.
walking very confidently, striding down the hall, and here comes Amanda. She's very confidently striding, but like Courtney had, Allison had this like little scurry, like she was like hurrying to keep up. It was very cute.
Yes.
It was
So
very
cute.
sweet.
So but she's a good mentor. She's asking you, what do you think? And Allison says, well, I think that we should give her a shot. And Amanda reminds Lucy that the clock is ticking. So boom,
Tick
get her
tock.
in my office this afternoon.
What could possibly go wrong?
No, this is all gonna be great.
This is going to be great. We are in the kitchen of a restaurant, and Terrence and Rhonda are there tasting pastries. And Rhonda's like, oh, these are better than sex.
Didn't you think, uh-oh.
Telling, very
That's
telling.
not- you don't
No,
tell
I
your
didn't think,
fiance.
uh-oh.
Yeah.
At least it's better than sex with you.
Well, then Terrence, do you remember? Terrence goes, tastes it and goes,
Yeah.
almost, like correcting her.
Yeah, well,
But then Terrence says that Nancy is a gifted pastry chef and wants her to make the cake for the wedding. So I thought this right when I saw this. Do you remember the star celebrity chef of the 90s, Nancy? Nancy Silverton was huge. She gave us the restaurants of Campanile and, Mozart and stuff, but she created La Brea Bakery, which is
So
now
they named this
national.
character Nancy, the chef character
Yes.
Nancy. Yeah.
And I looked at it was an extra. She didn't have a line or anything, but I looked and she looked like Nancy Silverton. And, Darren wrote this and Darren's into all that stuff and food and stuff. So I thought that's almost a cameo, but
just a nod to
to LA's like new celebrity chef. And that Terrence can afford her and he's on the pulse of everything, making this a great wedding. So we're going to have her make the cake. And Rhonda's like, well, my mom wanted to make the cake as a part of her gift. And Terrence is like, for 200 people?
He mocks her. He like laughs at that, like guffaw, like,
yeah.
No way.
These little tremors are kind of like, and here's another one. Rhonda's like, 200 people. I wanted to have an intimate wedding.
Well, but remember, I think an episode before last, she's talking to Matt and saying that it was 100, maybe we need 150. So then she was getting into the big wedding, remember?
Yeah.
But now it's 200. It's even more than last week. And she's like, wait. And like, wait, my mom wanted to make the cake. And
But even if her mom was making it for 150, that's also a lot of people.
Also a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot of
We're seeing
that's a lot of
different ideas, and So, she's like, and then he comes back with, well, I want the wedding to be about us,
ironically,
not what our parents think it should be. And that's kind of like said with irony, I thought, because he's controlling. Anyway, she's like, okay, you're right. Gives him a big kiss. I don't know. We'll see what's happening there. Okay. So now we're back in D&D and Lucy walks into the office with Allison and Amanda.
They're walking behind her like ducks. Little ducklings.
Are you still in the back?
Waddling along.
Little Allison, keeping up this new career. And he walks in and he introduces them to Rex Weldon, our hottie tennis star, played by Mitchell Anderson, who did a lot of stuff. And I recently saw him a year or two ago in a one-man play that he wrote and starred in.
Really? I had this visceral reaction to him because he was such a nice man.
Yeah.
He came on and I was like, oh, I remember him. I remember have really nice, long conversations with him.
Yeah.
What a nice man.
Yeah. And very smart and a real artist, and he was one of the people that Doug mentioned. Do you remember that, Laura?
And he went on to do another show in the 90s called Party of Five. And he's done a ton of stuff.
So he's there. Lucy pulls Arnold, his boss, basically aside and
manager,
saying, hey,
probably.
Manager,
client person.
Client. Yeah. We have a hot new photographer and we're, meeting them this afternoon. And he's like, oh, what's the name? Joe Reynolds. And Arnold's like, oh, I think I've heard of her.
Wasn't that a great line?
Just wanted to
want to be in on that thing.
I know everything.
Yeah. I've heard of him for sure.
I've heard of him.
Totally. He's the suit, basically. And Rex, in the meantime, is in the background, if you notice, like totally hitting hard on Allison. Like no moment there. He's on it. They're talking and he's like, so you're the one scheduled to babysit the shoot tomorrow, huh? And he says, I'm staying in this hotel in Century City and I'm just going to die of boredom. If you please don't take me somewhere tonight. And she's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, come on, name the place, Allison, I'm yours. I mean, he's really showing who he is and making her feel comfortable already. I mean, that was a little,
I don't know.
He's barking up the wrong tree with Allison. But. So then we cut to Shooters and he's still hitting on Allison. They're sitting at a table.
But she agreed to take him out. And so Shooters it is.
This is her LA, her hot
when you're
spot.
taking a cool person out to a night spot, Shooters, which apparently is the only bar in LA.
Only Shooters, because everyone's going to be there. You watch.
It's the only spot that Allison knows, that this gang knows. It's so funny. He was thinking like clubs downtown and like this and that. And
do you remember one year at the studio we got Shooters glasses?
Love those Shooters
I had
glasses.
them until recently. Yeah.
Wow.
Recently.
You gave them away?
I think my sister-in-law has some.
Somebody wanted them.
Yeah.
Oh.
They're cute little drinking glass tumblers.
So cute.
That was cute. So he's sitting there hitting on Allison and, how did someone so young and beautiful as her end up as a high-powered ad exec? Oh, I'm not high-powered, she says. Rex tells Allison, well, you're the one who should be modeling the underwear. I mean, this would not go today.
Very flirty,
None of
very
it.
flirty with Allison.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, haha. She keeps looking off and laughing it off. And he's like, well, we could do it together, and very inappropriate, annoying stuff. And then she waves to the waitress, and she puts the credit card down. Look how official she is. She knows that the
Calling it a
boss
night.
is supposed to pay.
This is enough.
I'll get this. And he's like, what are you doing? It's only 7:30. Come on, let me take you out to dinner. The guy's relentless.
I got to say, today at this point in my life, I like to be in my pajamas by 7:30. So I'm with Allison. I'm like, why am I still dressed? What is happening? Why am I in real pants?
Well, she knew it was time to call it a night with this guy. Like, let's call this one at 7:30.
But Courtney's, I feel you, Court. It's like anybody. I'm glad I got that done when I was younger in the 80s.
Exactly.
Nothing happening now. He's like, it's only 7:30. And she's like, but I want to keep this professional, which is what Amanda advised. He puts his hand on her and says, well, this doesn't look like The Office. I mean, this guy it's so funny. It's always like the really nice actor, who's playing these really annoying. Yeah. So we cut from there where you get out of that situation, I guess. And we are right back in Billy and Allison's apartment. And you are laying in the same clothes on the couch, going on and on.
This is what I was talking about, like Nancy Malone. Like, we're not just sitting at a table. Like, I'm laying on the couch talking to the ceiling. He's moving around the apartment. It really is so well directed.
Yeah, interesting staging and tells a story really of
I loved it kind of. You sort of paralleled like you were at your therapist's office, I thought. Like you're sitting there,
that's good.
Staring off, and of course Billy is your therapist. We've established over the past, and you're going on and on, not about what a jerk he was, but how you didn't go out. You're like complaining, like, why didn't I go out with him? Any woman would go out with Rex Weldon, and he's getting ready, and she doesn't notice. She's going on and on, and he's like, oh, you're being over dramatic. Come on. No, women don't say no to men like that. And he's like, well, you showed real willpower. And she's like, no, I was a coward. Back and forth. At one point here, he chooses to pull the chair right up and puts his foot up on right next to her head and starts tying his shoe. And he's saying, look, this is your first big chance at your job, and you just don't want to blow it, which I think is obviously great advice. And then he gets up to leave, and she jumps up. Where are you going? And he goes on a blind date. And I think then she like moves in on him, and she's all coquettish, and she starts adjusting his hair and his collar, and like, oh.
I didn't see coquettish.
You didn't?
I saw, like, as an audience member, I was like, shut up and kiss him. But I think that as the character, she's so clueless. She's like, let me straighten your tie. Have fun on your date.
Well, plus, like he said to her in this scene that, she says, why am I so righteously principled? And Billy says, well, some of us like that about you, which is so sweet. Like,
so sweet.
It's actually saying, I like these qualities about you. And then she's also returning it when he's going out on a date. She's like, go have fun. And she's like, they're supporting each other, and they're like, saying, yeah, like he's choosing to go on a date, and instead of going, you shouldn't be doing that, she's like, okay, go have fun, go for it.
She says, yeah,
don't make the mistake I did, just go for it or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, they're just being so good to each other, and the audience is going, just look at each other and see.
Just kiss, for the love of God.
She's right there in front of you.
But you know what I thought? Her last line I thought was kind of minimized what he was doing, because she's jealous, because she's also in love with him, but won't admit it. She
Look,
says,
Daphne, I remember this exactly 30 years ago. And no, I don't, but I didn't. I don't think I had that complicated a thought at the time.
Well, the line
but I love that you're putting that in there. That's good. Thank you.
Well, the line was that you say to Billy is, look at you, Billy's great adventure. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like, ugh. And to me, it just felt like kind of Billy's great adventure. Like that kind of like does it in a way that she can handle it. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little and minimizing.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't read it that way. And I thought she was saying like, go for it. Cause I didn't.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't go for it with Rex Weldon. Great name, by the way. I didn't go for it, but you should go for it.
Yeah, she did. And then she said that other one. But at any rate, I'm very sensitive to these things. So cut to exterior of a big high-rise apartment, and then we cut into the apartment hallway, and he's looking for a door, and then he knocks.
Billy.
And Lydia opens the door and waves him into her apartment.
And we're
he
supposed
looks
to
at
think
her.
something,
Yeah.
but it's like this moment, and they freeze on him, and I think, I don't know what the moment is.
Well,
Like,
I think
she's
it was
not
like
dramatically one way or another.
I think it was like the blind element, right? The door reveals what he's been waiting to see is what does she look like? Does she look like Cindy Crawford, whatever? And it's like, what is he expecting? And he sort of takes this moment to assess her. She's cute and maybe just not what he was expecting or whatever. But I think that seemed to be the look that I was noting is like, he's seeing her for the first time on this blind date and
I thought
deciding,
she was
oh, that's
totally-
maybe not what I was expecting or whatever, but like she's perfectly cute and whatever. And she invites him in and he's like, all right, we're doing this. And he, steps in going, okay, let's see what this is going to be.
Yeah, I think they did make a definite decision because they put her in pearls. She has short curly hair with pearls and a lace collar.
Right.
And he was promised, even jokingly, Cindy Crawford. So they went totally opposite on purpose. Like you're supposed to, yeah, like you said, she's cute, but not Melrose Place high. You know what I mean?
And
like,
it's his expectation, right? He doesn't know what we don't know what he
Yeah.
was expecting either because he's just entering something blind. And so the door opening is the reveal. So like they just had this moment of like, this is who you're dating tonight,
yeah, that whole blind date thing.
Yeah.
And the next scene is really cute. I thought it was one of those like a Nancy Malone. It was to me, it seemed like a real comedy, a lot of physical comedy in it. You see, we're in a Japanese restaurant and Billy and Lydia are sitting side by side. So they're facing the camera and they're eating dinner. And he opens up by him saying, soccer and writing, writing and soccer, like the most unscintillating conversation.
That's what he's into.
And she says, oh, postmodern dance or something.
Watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Watching
yes,
it.
I don't do it. I watch it. And do you notice she had chopsticks and she had one in each hand. She was stabbing her food. It was really cute.
Completely quirky.
Really
and-
funny, really cute.
Yeah.
I thought it was really great. Like I could just the banter, it was just a really great scene. And they played it so well. Do you know what I mean? Not miserable, like it didn't bring you down like so uncomfortable, but it was uncomfortable but funny at the same time.
Just because they're not matching and he's, she's quirky and she's, just sort of funny and the funny physicality of the scene of the awkwardness is.
I mean, and then but they're trying, right? And they're acknowledging that they're trying. Like he's like, well, what else do you like to do? And then suddenly, and she's poking her food, like you said, then she like can't even lift the damn thing, but then 2 drinks come in, big fruity drinks right in front of their faces. And they're like, oh, okay. And they toast that and say to blind dates. And Billy just looks off camera. He's like, okay.
When is this going to be over?
Yeah. So maybe in Melrose Minute, we'll talk about if anyone had any bad blind dates. Blind dates worked out well for me since that time I met my husband
Well,
18
we have
years
so
ago.
much to cover.
Yeah, but we don't have time,
Somebody
right?
be writing stuff down. We don't have time right now.
Hi, this is Ruthie Rogers, host of Ruthie's Table 4. This week, my guest is Zoe Saldana, and what a woman she is.
I come from a family, and I do know this, that it's a cultural thing. We dance. If you failed a test, we danced. If you passed it, you know what I mean? It's you just dance, and you dance merengue, and you dance salsa, and everybody sits in someone's backyard.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts.
I started to live a double life when I was a teenager. Responsible and driven, and wild and out of control. My head is pounding. I'm confused. I don't know why I'm in jail. It's hard to understand what hope is when you're trapped in a cycle of addiction. Addiction took me to the darkest places. I had an AK-47 pointed at my head. But one night, a new door opened, and I made it into the rooms of recovery. The path would have roadblocks and detours, stalls, and relapses. But when I was feeling the most lost, I found hope with community, and I made my way back. This season, join me on my journey through addiction and recovery, a story told in 12 steps. Listen to Crumbs as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it, or smell it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with 4 wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg, an iHeart women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
The next day in Allison and Billy's apartment, Allison is there, and then Billy walks in, and she's really nervous. She's like, oh my God, I keep having these nightmares. It's about this photo shoot. It's going wrong.
Allison is completely worked up. I was just like, this is where, I had a couple scenes like this where I go, I wish I knew enough to find some layers, like just from beginning to end of this scene. It was like, everything he says upsets me. Like 1 to 10, I'm at a 9 the entire scene.
You're stressed out about this new position, her promotion.
Because you thought you could be fired.
I played the one note. I'm like, here's my note in the scene. Stress you out.
Stressed out.
Could we have a layer?
Anxiety.
And Billy's like mellowing you out,
Like what was that movie about everybody played a different emotion? I was just anxiety. That's all I was
right. Inside out.
Outside
totally.
in.
Inside out.
Inside out. Yes.
Yeah.
I was anxiety in this scene.
Yeah.
I was at 11 the entire scene.
He's common sense for you,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, can I make you something? No, I can't eat. Then she's like picking at his bagel and the coffee thing.
And my only thought when I'm eating the bagel is, oh, I didn't know I couldn't eat gluten then because it gives me migraines. I was thinking, I wonder if I got a migraine after that scene because I didn't know then that was one of the things that gave me migraines. Wow.
Billy's wise line here, he warns Allison that it's too early in her career to self-destruct.
Yeah.
That's such a smart way to say, calm yourself down. This is too early to do this.
And he picks up the paper and she's like, I'm just afraid that Joe's going to do something wrong. And then he stops. He's like, what? Well, Joe's doing it. Oh, Jesus. Now you should worry.
Not helpful. I know.
No wonder you're stressed out. She's a mess.
I just love how Billy has just held on to this resentment because she calls him Bill and she thinks he stinks when he goes on a date. What's that smell? And she's always, sending him away. And he's like, oh, she's terrible. She's going to wreck everything. She doesn't listen to the rules. She's difficult. She's going to cause all kinds of problems, he says. Way to unstress her.
Yeah, he's not helping at all.
No.
But was he maybe a little right? Just saying maybe a little foreshadowing.
Maybe he's an oracle. It's annoying, but maybe he's an oracle. And anyway, so then she says, how was the date? And he goes, well, it was okay. That's it. Fine. And I told her I would call her, but I won't. Like all in one sentence. And she's like, what? Oh, I hate that about
because
God.
again, we're at 11. So I go right after the same.
I'm going to stress about you.
I was stressed about this as I am about the jobs I am about Joe.
And now you're being
upset.
Yeah.
It's really funny. So she just gets upset. She's like, I hate it when the guys don't call. You don't even like the guy, but it's just the point that he doesn't call makes you upset, which is true.
So you should call her. You should call Lydia.
Yeah, you should call. Do
you guys remember, like they did a thing on Melrose Place on Saturday Night Live, And in the Billy Allison thing, Billy's saying, Allison, I miss Allison. And I'm saying, I can't talk. I've got a very important job at D&D. I'm very busy at D&D. And this scene
I
made
do
me
remember
think of
that.
Very important job at D&D. I was like, that
And
is
now
the
it's
scene.
and now it's even more important.
Super anxious.
It's like the most important.
How about, I thought the way this scene ended was so funny and weird too, because we hear Joe yelling through the courtyard, come on, Allison, let's go. Like she's coming down the stairs shouting instead of like knocking on Allison's door or whatever on the way by. She just shouts it through the courtyard.
Yes.
Come on, Allison, let's go.
I know. She doesn't know that Allison's nerves are frayed. I can't take the yelling.
Yelling at her is not going to make things better.
I mean, it would have been great if they had all known all of our like thoughts going into this. If you had gone like, and Billy could go, told you.
Yeah, listen.
But but no, Allison goes out into the courtyard and Joe's coming down the stairs with all of her equipment. And there's Jake going, oh, what's all this? And Joe says, that's the job where they pay me actual money. And Allison got it for me. It's starting to pay off to live in this building. Like it only pay off so far. And Jake's like, oh, congratulations.
Jake that.
Is there anything I can do? Allison comes up and says, okay, let's go. So they take off.
There's nothing you can do. I have a very important day at work.
I thought that was a strange line. Is there anything I can do? Like what? Why?
I thought it was a
that there?
strange scene.
Why didn't he
What
just
are they
go, oh,
setting up?
congratulations, and then out they go?
Yeah, and what are they setting up
It
with
just
him?
felt like such an unnecessary, is there anything I can
Maybe we were short on time. I don't know.
I don't know what it was.
I know lunch was happening, whatever.
But the crux
Okay.
is, congratulations, you got a job that Allison helped you get. Bye. Have a good day. Bye. And they leave.
So then we cut right into the middle of this photo shoot, and the music, some great 90s music is pounding, and there
And
is
poor Mitchell is sitting there
Mitchell.
in underwear, like having to remember, like if you're not watching the show, remember those scenes on like Charlie's Angels where they're doing photo shoots and everybody, and he's having to dance around in his underwear.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, such a sweet guy to have to do that.
Milking it. Like he's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to commit.
I'm committed.
Like,
Yeah.
100%.
all these poses.
He's in a tiny little, like tiny
wind
whitey,
machine.
but colored, like red or blue or whatever, but like
Bikini
super
underwear.
tiny bikini underwear and posing like, wow.
And he was
like so
great shape.
into it. He just like hammed it up and committed. Like
Yeah,
100%.
good for him.
I thought it
That
was
stuff is
hysterical.
hard. Good for him.
That's really hard, but he was really responding to his photographer, if I might add, because Joe, who's like on the floor, oh yes, baby, oh God, oh another one, and then she ends up by saying, "You've done this before," and he's like, "Nope, virgin." I mean, it was all a metaphor for sex, obviously.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, I need a break. Let's powder Rex and get me a ladder." She's gonna set up some other
Yeah, and a fan. Whew.
Yes, yes. And Allison walks over. And by the way, we might say that Lucy and the suits are really enjoying it. I think we've got it. This is great. They're all excited because they're all lined up in those director chairs, cast chairs.
By the way, they never say, I think we've got it. It's finally the actor's rep comes in and says, we're done, because they always want more, right? Have you ever had them say, yeah, we're good, you can go?
Yeah, no.
Right.
Never.
But they do say that it's wonderful. And before they get up, yeah, they have to get up to leave because like maybe lunch for them or whatever.
Yeah,
So
they're
they're
hungry.
leaving
They're
confident
hungry,
that
so
they're getting
they
it.
can.
And Allison walks over to Joe and says, that was really wonderful. This is great. And then Joe, who should, in my opinion, just go, great, awesome, we got it. The client's happy. She should just wrap things up. But no, she pulls Allison aside and she says, hey, I want you to open your mind and I want to try something a little bizarre, something different. Call it extra credit, Allison. And then
And Allison, I think she says, I trust you, which, famous last words.
Yeah.
maybe she did say, yeah, go for it. And then she makes a mistake of saying, go for it. And then she leaves. And then we have Joe climbing the ladder. And she says to Rex, lose the briefs.
Yeah, which, like,
Not
me too.
happening nowadays.
No,
Yeah, of course
so
No
uncomfortable.
way, no how.
But this was the early 90s.
No,
But he
different.
looked very
Yeah.
pleased and like,
Oh,
all
yeah.
right,
He's
game
like, oh.
on. And he drops his drawers.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah,
finally, a girl who wants to play.
Let's do this. Whoop.
So now we are in Shooters and it's nighttime, and Billy and Jake are at the bar drinking margaritas,
and Billy's is a fruity strawberry margarita, hysterical, which I don't know if you noticed, all through this scene, he leaves it on the bar. And if he needs to take a drink, he leans towards it and he's like looking for the straw. And he's like, and he takes the drink like that, where Grant knows enough to pick up the drink and drink like a normal person. But Andrew's like,
so
trying
funny.
to find the straw in his red fruity margarita. Oh my God. Hysterical.
acting is hard.
I
Even,
love
like
it.
all these things. You got to know how to do things exactly right, because then you're like,
so funny.
Very funny. So they're sitting there at the bar, and Billy is telling Jake that he called Lydia, and she, after the first date, and she invited him over for dinner. So now he's trapped. And Jake says to Billy, well, your first mistake was saying that you would call, and the second mistake was listening to Allison. So I guess because she's a woman, she's been in that position, and of course she's going to say that or something. I don't know. Anyway, Billy says relationships are a mistake.
They're just doubling down, like, well, yeah,
Well, guys,
all relationships are a
Gross.
mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy
Take
says if
another
I
sip.
could do without one, I would. Yeah. And then he has a drink.
bro talk at the bar with the
relationships
God,
are a mistake.
I'm never gonna take a straw. I don't use straws anyway.
Note to self. Okay.
Take the straw out.
Oh my gosh.
Just behind them, we see Joe walking in with Rex after that shoot.
Because everybody comes to Shooters.
Everyone comes to
because
Shooters.
if
Now,
you're
Rex has been to
having a
Shooters
date
twice.
with a new guy, you want to go to your ex-boyfriend's bar. You want to go to the current boyfriend's bar, because again, only bar in LA.
And
apparently.
also the same bar you went to with a different girl last night. And you were only in town for a couple nights anyway.
And you know what? Rex is game, man. I'm in LA. I don't even live here. I live in
Yeah, I love
Florida
this
at the
place.
tennis camp. And
I've been here. I
So
love
Shooters.
this vibe.
She really should have said, "Why am I back at this bar of all bars?"
Oh my
Their
God.
strawberry margaritas are really good here.
Hi, this is Ruthie Rogers, host of Ruthie's Table 4. This week, my guest is Zoe Saldana, and what a woman she is.
I come from a family, and I do know this, that it's a cultural thing. We dance. If you failed a test, we danced. If you passed it, you know what I mean? It's you just dance, and you dance merengue, and you dance salsa, and everybody sits in someone's backyard.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts.
I started to live a double life when I was a teenager. Responsible and driven, and wild and out of control. My head is pounding. I'm confused. I don't know why I'm in jail. It's hard to understand what hope is when you're trapped in a cycle of addiction. Addiction took me to the darkest places. I had an AK-47 pointed at my head. But one night, a new door opened, and I made it into the rooms of recovery. The path would have roadblocks and detours, stalls, and relapses. But when I was feeling the most lost, I found hope with community, and I made my way back. This season, join me on my journey through addiction and recovery, a story told in 12 steps. Listen to Crumbs as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey, you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with four wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg, an iHeart women's sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
She's all excited. She's like, I'm going to make your butt famous. And he's like, it already is. And he is flirting. And, but she's kind of flirting, but she's saying no chance. It's not going to happen. And he's like, oh yeah. And then she said something about, you could play Mozart with a mouthpiece and it's still no. So she's having very strong boundaries, but Jake, who sees them, doesn't hear the boundaries being made and gets up from the bar and he's all huffy and putting on a jacket to leave. And Joe sees him and he's like, wait, Jake, where are you going? And he just said, it's tough to watch. You're over there with this guy and I'm going to leave. And Billy looks back. Joe, she's in trouble. She's causing trouble all the time. I love the line that I say to Jake, like, what's like you hang out with Rusty?
Rusty sounds like he's from the work. But
it must be a woman, right?
It's a
because
woman.
Otherwise, why would she make that point?
Yeah.
Oh,
like this tatted up woman
right.
with,
Okay.
I don't know. But I thought it was so funny. Rusty's never been mentioned before, but anyway. So we leave this whole trouble place and we come back to the courtyard and Allison is looking up Joe's door and like, she's not there. Walks to Jake's apartment and says, Joe disappeared after the photo shoot and is Joe in there with you? And Jake says no, that she was at Shooters with Rex. And Allison is like, oh, no, she should be developing the film. I need it tomorrow. We have a deadline. And just then, Joe and Rex walk in.
Rex the Wonder Stud, as Jake refers to him, as Rex the Wonder Stud.
Rex the Wonder Stud. They walk in laughing, and this is not good for her boundaries and saying that it was just a work
It's not
thing.
good optics here.
Not good optics. Rex says to Allison, wow, it's a small world. Are you following us? And she's like, no, I live here. And then she looks at Joe and she's like, should be working on the proofs of the photos tonight. And then Joe's like, okay, I get the message and says, you got to go. And Rex gives her a kiss on the cheek and leaves. And then she says, good night. And turns to her friends and says, all. And she stomps upstairs. And Jake and Allison look after her. So she's already a troublemaker.
Yeah, she seems annoyed that Allison and Jake are like kind of irritated about the whole thing too. Like,
Yeah,
what?
totally.
But Allison and Jake are, disappointed and it's clearly not good optics. And Jake even tries to tell him, hey, buddy, like beat it, sort of like, because Rex sort of tries to say, well, hey, maybe we can. And before he can even finish the sentence, Jake like cuts him off and he's like, yeah, some other time, like, hike, get out of here. And Joe's like, I'm mad about that, that like Jake is whatever, inserting himself in this situation. She's
And
like,
all
"Good
I'm
night."
imagining, because Daphne, am watching this going, like, she is so irresponsible. She is causing trouble. She is putting her friend who gave her this first job, her job in jeopardy. And I'm thinking, well, maybe this is her New York. This is how they do it in New York. They shoot photographs and they, for magazines and they go out and have drinks and party all night. Maybe that's just a difference for her. It's not here. I don't know. It does seem like I'm pissed at Joe right now. I'm getting.
I love it. Like when we watch these we watch these episodes, it's all such a different perspective to look at it as an audience member. And like, you don't remember shooting it or like, okay, that, obviously it's in the script. And so you have to play it, whatever the way you chose to play it and whatever you're telling the story that you've been asked to tell and stuff. But like watching it later as an audience member, you're like, oh, what an annoying thing that character's doing right now. And like, you just see it totally differently watching it back like this.
Yeah, because you can't, when you're playing it, you can't have these judgments or third eye about it, or you'd be totally messed up.
Yeah, you can't mess yourself up.
No, that's true.
Allison knocks on the door, says, where are the pictures? She's like, Jesus, you're up early. And she comes in and I need coffee. And then she's like, look, I was up all night doing the pictures. Allison says, look, I hope it went well, the rest of the shoot. And she's like, yeah, Rex and I had a good time. And then Allison's like, he asked me out too. This little jealousy thing.
So petty.
And Jake didn't appreciate it and all this stuff. And she's like, what is your problem? Listen, between me and Jake. And then she goes, Amanda says that you don't socialize with the client. And she's like, who the hell's Amanda? Because it's the first time Joe's heard of her. The Emily Post of advertising. Anyway, so they have this thing and she's like, don't worry about it. That's between me and Jake, and you'll get the photos this afternoon. Then we are in the suburbs at a very, very big house, and Terrence is bringing Rhonda to this house in this neighborhood, and she goes, oh, I'm not even dressed for this. It looks so fancy. And he's like, you don't have to be dressed for this. And then he goes to unlock the door, and she's like, why are you unlocking the door to this strange, huge house? And Terrence tells Rhonda that, step in, it's yours, madam. What? She finds out that he wants to buy this house. There's no rush, but he does want to hope to start a family here, but there's no rush. So
didn't you think as if they'd never talked about it? Like, right, maybe we'll have a family one day. I'm like, aren't these conversations you have before you marry someone? Like, do we want kids? That's a big oversight.
It really seemed to slam Rhonda here, like the reality of what a future with this guy is going to be and maybe look like and feel like, because like just being in that big house and hearing him talk about it, she was not liking that picture. She was suddenly thinking about
totally rushed it. Everything was too much. All of it adding up to this.
Uncomfortable for her.
Yeah. So then we're in D&D, and Amanda and Allison are eating lunch takeout at the desk, and Allison's like, well, they should be here. They should be here. The photos should be here. And she's like, yeah, you've been saying that for the last hour. And then this messenger kid comes in with earphones on, bopping away. And I guess you can hear the music through his earphones. Guns N' Roses, which I think is funny about because Heather takes it. And it's kind of like Heather saying it to him, Guns N' Roses will make you impotent. Because of course she's dating.
Amanda says it to him. He can't hear and he like nods and smiles. Like, cool.
Yeah, he's like, great.
Here's your package. Bye.
Yeah, great. Anyway, she pulls open this package of these slides that Joe has sent over. And in every single one, Rex is naked in every single photo. And Allison freaks. Oh my God. And then Amanda's looking at them and, oh my God, I'm going to kill her. So slam cut to, we are now Allison at Joe's apartment. And that's when we're in the developing room, and she's developing more photos, and she's like furious at Joe. And Joe explains that she didn't do it to embarrass you, but I just made a professional judgment, and we wanted something fresh and original. And besides, he is holding the underwear. They're at his hip, they're at his ankle. And she's like, this is not funny. And which she has every right to be furious, obviously. Allison asked Joe, I want to see the slides with him actually wearing the underwear. And she tries to convince her, no, why? She goes, I want to see
No, really? No, why? You're being so weird, Allison.
Being so weird. No. Yeah. You're going to wreck. She says, doesn't want part of you like the unexpected? And she says, this is business. I'm new. Like, screw the unexpected. I want the opposite of that. Do I have to point this out to you? And she's like, oh, okay. And she goes over and she gives him the slides, and she goes, all right, it's your choice.
Pretty passive aggressive for her to say, well, you admit it. These are great. Don't you think they would have grabbed you and maybe even made you laugh if you weren't so panicked about breaking a rule for once? And she's sort of like making it about Allison being too conservative or straight or boring.
Yeah, it was very young, right? Like, what are you scared?
Yeah. Like, come on, these are better. And she just keeps trying to say, but it's not what the client wanted. And Joe just keeps pushing like, but they're better. Is this about you being so, straight laced and stuff, and just really challenging Allison to go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
My friend's going to judge me if I, choose this route or whatever. You just kind of like surprisingly like judgy towards Allison and stuff, like challenging her to choose the unexpected because it's cooler. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which are real things. This is real things, real topics, you know. I mean, they're just trying to really show how edgy and out there Joe is and risks whatever. And look at her life. It's pretty like not what Allison vibes on. All right. So we are now back in Lydia's apartment. Remember her? And Billy's there. They're on their second date, another ill-advised date.
I know, but how does he calls her to say, it was great to meet you, but I'm not going to take it further. And then ends up at dinner. Talk about lack of boundaries.
They somehow both agreed to have have another date. Yeah. We're not sure.
Do you want to have dinner? I do not. I don't want to see you again.
That was horrible, but okay.
But all right. Yeah.
So funny. And she's serving dinner and she's like, oh yeah, Gelson's is great, isn't it? So she's right up front about, I don't cook. This is all prepared food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to come over for some prepared food?
Gelson's does have great prepared food. But Lydia observes that Billy's been stuffing his face for the last half hour and talking about the food. So you don't have to talk to me. And he's like, no, that's not it. Not at all. And she's like, look, I know that you're not my type. I prefer someone more substantial, she says. And he says, you mean fat? And she's like, no, I mean someone who's more established and, older. And he's like, yeah, well, you're not my type either. So they're starting to get really honest. And Lydia says, well, why did you ask me out? And Billy's like, well,
they both sort of agree. Yeah. Like, well, why did you ask me out? And he says, yeah, well, why did you say yes? And they both sort of acknowledge they could have saved themselves all this trouble if they've just been avoiding, trying to not avoid, don't hurt anybody's feelings. Sort of just like say, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, well, you're here. Gelson's makes great eclairs. So you want some dessert? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And then she walks to get the eclairs and he's like, chocolate? And she's like, vanilla.
Are there vanilla eclairs? I've only heard of chocolate eclairs.
Me too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess Lydia found them. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm surprised Billy didn't ask for strawberry.
It was like if all the air.
Everything red and fruity.
Tried to eat it without his hands.
Yeah.
She didn't say I have a fruity drink for you because I would have turned them on.
But we're to conclude here that there is just nothing that they just have nothing in common.
They're finally ready to say it.
Their tastes are just completely opposite. Yeah. So she offers to just walk him to his car. Can I see you out? Here's your hat. What's your hair?
Hi, this is Ruthie Rogers, host of Ruthie's Table 4. This week, my guest is Zoe Saldana, and what a woman she is.
I come from a family, and I do know this, that it's a cultural thing. We dance. If you failed a test, we danced. If you passed it, you know what I mean? You just dance, and you dance merengue, and you dance salsa, and everybody sits in someone's backyard.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts.
I started to live a double life when I was a teenager. Responsible and driven, and wild and out of control. My head is pounding. I'm confused. I don't know why I'm in jail. It's hard to understand what hope is when you're trapped in a cycle of addiction. Addiction took me to the darkest places. I had an AK-47 pointed at my head. But one night, a new door opened, and I made it into the rooms of recovery. The path would have roadblocks and detours, stalls, and relapses. But when I was feeling the most lost, I found hope with community, and I made my way back. This season, join me on my journey through addiction and recovery, a story told in 12 steps. Listen to Crumbs as part of the My Cultura Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey you guys, I'm Catherine Legg. I'm a racing driver who's literally driven everything with four wheels across the planet. And I've got a new podcast. It's called Throttle Therapy. This season, I'm gearing up to make history, competing in some of the world's most notorious racing events, starting at the Indy 500. Join me as I travel from racetrack to racetrack in my quest to continue a memorable career in racing. I'm also going to bring you inside stories with legends of sports, new faces from the next generation of auto racing, and conversations with the people who've supported me throughout my career. We'll be getting into everything from karting to NASCAR, even Formula One. Whether you dream about being a pro athlete or an astronaut, we're talking about what it takes to make it. Listen to Throttle Therapy with Catherine Legg, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.
And so now we're in the basement in the laundry room, and Matt is doing his laundry.
And Matt is here.
Yeah. He has to appear.
There's not enough Doug
Here
in
he
the
is.
show. That's my problem. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're paying him per week, so they got to put him in something, right? So
yeah, he needs more to do though.
But he's kind of down on Rhonda. Rhonda comes down and starts unloading and confiding that she's worried about, Terrence, and it's too much, and I'm not ready, and she does this with Matt, and he's not into it. He's like, well, just what about your other life? What about this new life? And she's like, what other life? And your volunteer and all that. Oh, I don't know. I'll do that and this. And he just doesn't want to hear. He just don't want to hear from her. I feel like his feelings were hurt. Did you guys feel that his feelings were hurt this time? But he's the one that said to go for it.
I got in this scene, I got more that like she wants to tell him the truth. And she starts by saying, Matt, I'm in trouble. And he's like, wait, what? And she starts to tell him about the house and that it seemed too big and it just didn't seem right. And he says, well, maybe you can just tell him the house isn't right for you. Yeah. And she then says, well, that's not just it. I think that two people about to start a life together would want the same things, and that the house was just not just a house, but it just felt like she was being swallowed by all of it. And then he realizes the depth that what she's really saying is like her? Much more than the house. And that's when he asks her, well, do you love him?
And she's like, well, this and that. And he goes, yeah, but do you? He says it twice. And she's
and she realizes maybe she doesn't know. But Matt's the person she confides these feelings in.
Yeah.
And that's what I got, that she was just like really admitting she doesn't even know if this is the right thing to be doing. She doesn't know if she loves him. Zoinks.
Yeah, zoinks. So now we are in Allison and Billy's apartment, and it's morning, and Allison is looking at the photo negatives at her desk while Billy comes in drinking his orange juice. And Billy tells Allison that he and Lydia mutually agreed to never see each other again.
That was so bad. Let's never lay eyes on each other again.
Like they shook hands on it. It was agreement. It's so funny. And so Allison says, well, don't worry. Someone will come along.
Might be someone right under your nose.
Here I am.
Wah, wah.
So Allison asked Billy his opinion about the naked photos of Rex, and asked Billy if he thinks it's too risky. And then he's so helpful by saying, look, you're an executive now. You'll figure it out. And I think he walks away. Great.
And he's like, well, I warned you, but anyway, you'll have to figure this one out, Allison.
The Oracle figured it out.
Yeah.
So now we're in D&D advertising, and Allison is showing Amanda the options for the negatives. And Allison tells Amanda that the naked shots are better. And Amanda's like, yes. But Amanda says, this is a campaign for sports briefs, and that the client will hate these photos. And Allison asks Amanda, so I should play it safe? And she's like, play it smart, Demi, and walks away. So obviously she is saying, show the ones with the underwear on. And now we're in the conference room, and there's a slide projector, and we're seeing these huge photos on the wall on a projector screen. Allison is presenting the photos with the underwear, and everyone's loving it. Their
clients are smiling, and
great. Yeah, these are wonderful. And it's the ones that we saw her taking in the beginning of the shoot. And then very excellent. Everyone's like, wow, we got it. Again, they're so happy. And Lucy says, Allison, because the screen is now white. And Lucy says, are there any more photos to show? And Allison thinks about it. And this is the big decision. Do I show them or not? And she says, yes, there are a few more. So she takes that risk, and she shows the naked photos of Rex. And they start getting all upset. They're like, this is not what we talked about. What?
They're immediately horrified.
Horrified. He's buck naked. What are you doing? And then Lucy's like, okay, turns on the light. That was just a stab at humor. And then she says, Allison, please stick around afterwards. And Amanda looks at her and she's like, you're going to.
She does the finger across the throat. You're dead.
You're dead, dummy.
Yeah, that was good.
Dummy.
And then we are back at the Rodeo Collection on Rodeo Drive. Rhonda and Terrence are looking at invitations for their invites, and they're looking at fancy stuff with real lavender in there. It smells. They're imported from the south of France. And Rhonda's overwhelmed again, even more so. And Terrence is like, what's the matter? You don't like it? Well, we can go for another kind of more simple invite. And Rhonda's, look, I'm not ready for this. She realizes it's either now or never. They're doing the invites for the wedding. And I can't go forward with this. And he's, what? Terrence says, well, you just have cold feet. That's normal. And she apologizes that he wants her to be. Yeah. She takes the ring off. And it's so sad. It's a close up on her beautiful fingernails. Sad. But the ring is in the hand. And
she leaves them
you're
there.
Making a mistake. And she just leaves them there. So hard. And then here we are at Allison and Billy's apartment. And Joe is at Allison's apartment. And Allison is recounting her experience with Lucy. And Joe's like, oh my God, she fired you. And she's like, no, Allison said that Lucy thinks that I have, courage and imagination, but just lack judgment in that situation. But I still have my job. Oh, thank God. She goes, Joe's like, so happy. Great. What's our next job? Which is a great joke. Allison goes, yeah, my next assignment is Oakham.
It's not going to
sausage.
include you.
My next assignment is Oakham sausage links, and you're not getting near it. Good joke there. And then we're at Jake's apartment, and Joe knocks on the door with a bag of Chinese food, and
Joe's on her apology tour.
Totally, right? Yeah. Apartment 1, 2.
Sorry, I almost got you fired. And
yeah. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings and was being a jerk.
Here's Chinese food.
And he's like, how come you always how come you make me mad if we get in a fight and then you always show up with food? And she's like, I don't know. And they go in and she starts setting it up, and he says to her, you just can't come in and out of my life like this. And she's like, look. And then she tells her truth, which is interesting, right? Like Billy and Allison did, then Rhonda did, now Joe is. And it's, I like you so much, it just scares me. That's my truth. And my first instinct is to run. To which he takes her face and kisses her passionately.
Yummy.
Yep. And she's like, okay, see, why do I run?
They seem to be back on track.
They're back on track for now. And then we're at Allison and Billy's apartment, and it's still nighttime, and Billy's heating up the microwave, and there's a knock on the door. Billy opens the door. Who's this? Amanda, in a red suit with her big, beautiful smile. And he's like, I just thought it was a great setup. Like, this is a great scene because like it's a blind date-ish-esque.
Oh.
This strange woman just goes up and opens the door, and he opens it, and
yeah, when your blind date is Heather
maybe
Locklear,
this was my blind date.
Really well.
Yeah. He opens the door and he likes what he sees, and you can just see it on both of their faces. It's like, oh, what a nice surprise behind
Who are
this door.
you? And
But did you think, like, I thought, oh wait, they started with this. I knew that Amanda and Billy dated at some point. I didn't remember this is where it started. Did you?
They established
it's too soon. It's too soon for me. I'm not ready.
I would think so.
In the very episode where Billy is looking for someone to date, right? And then at the end, the woman appears that he's like, you've come.
It's Amanda.
You've arrived. It's
but
you.
I thought they dated after you guys, Billy and Allison, for a while. Maybe he went around for sloppy seconds.
No, because afterwards, I remember that scene I talk about when we were in Lake Castaic and we were water. That was the end of the first season because we were all crying because we kept getting picked up.
Oh,
so that was that scene. So yeah, because we're at episode 21.
Yeah.
So that was what, episode probably 30, 32.
But this is a super cute, like
exciting,
meet cute for them. Like they're
Yeah,
both.
that's enough, Laura. That's
Sorry,
enough.
it is. There's the obstacle.
She looks kind of
in
haggard,
front.
I think.
It's
Is what Laura means.
The obstacle in between.
Wasn't
Allison
Heather's
and
best
Billy.
day.
Amanda Woodward. Here she is. She's arrived.
And she's like, "Oh, Amanda, Allison never mentioned you." And he's like, "Yeah, she never mentioned you either."
Yeah.
Well,
what's she
you
been
wanna come
keeping
in?
from us? Yeah.
In Allison's defense, she's never mentioned Amanda to anyone until this episode.
No.
Oh, Amanda,
Yeah.
of course, my
Yeah.
dear friend Amanda.
She's been at D&D all the time. But
Yeah, just in the other room.
Don't need to mention her.
But this is a great ending to an episode, and it's a great ending to Heather's first show with us.
First episode. Yeah, they really she sort of snuck in as like Allison's friend and this nice mentor at D&D. And then this is the new Melrose, though, that it happens quickly. We go from one side to the other very quickly because now we're doing, it's so fast.
Yeah, because he even as she's there clearly to just deliver something to Allison, he invites her, hey, well, why don't you come in for a drink? And she looks like she's tempted, like she would love to say yes, but she's like, oh, I can't. I have so much work to do. And he's like, well, how about dinner? It's like he's really establishing right away that there's this, interest from both of them. And she looks tempted every time he sort of pushes. And she finally says, well, I really have to go. And as she's leaving, instead, she turns back and she's like, well, how about a rain check? There's the door is still open.
He's
for
like,
it.
yeah, anytime.
He's thrilled. Yeah.
But
did you know,
ending.
so he's like, great. Yeah. Anytime on that rain check. And then as she's turning to go, she's walking towards the camera and she says very quietly, did you catch this? She's walking away smiling. We can see him in the background watching her walk away. And she says very quietly, yeah, real soon.
No,
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I had
very
to
Amanda.
go back and hear it again. And I think that's what she says. And she says it to herself, super quiet. But the frame is both of them facing the camera. He's in the background watching her and she's walking out going, yeah, real soon.
Yeah.
It's so
great.
cute.
And I don't remember. I think that she was booked for a number of episodes. And then obviously the show exploded with her on it. But I don't remember if this was the arc, if she was there to create something between Allison and Billy.
I feel like Chip mentioned
I
that
would
from the
say so.
beginning, they wanted that to be Amanda to be a problem between Billy and Allison. And that even though knowing that the audience all wanted the Billy and Allison thing, the longer you prolong it and put these obstacles in front, is you just keep pulling the audience in of I want this. And make it hard.
I don't remember the next episode, but I wonder if Allison's going to be all over Billy. You know what I mean? And very protective if the tables are turned,
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see the next one, guys. We have a, we'll have another recap soon. We're going to have Heather on very, very soon.
So excited to see her.
So everybody, don't forget to subscribe and you'll get the Melrose Minutes that we have at the end of the weeks. And you'll have every episode in your inbox, including our upcoming very exciting guests.
Yeah.
We'll find out what happens in the next episode with all.
She'll remember what she was signed for. I do remember that the second season when she was a regular, we all got better trailers. I remember that she came on and got better for all of us because it was all favored nations. We all got the same. It was that's a real upgrade. Thanks, Heather.
Well, we can't wait to talk to her, and she'll be coming on very, very soon.
Very soon.
Tune in. Thanks for listening again. And as always, thanks for listening to Still the Place.
Yes,
bye, guys.
See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.